of the Sound Dragon.
Yes, Call of the Sound Dragon. This is book 16 in the series. We're just moving right along here. Dragon Masters, very exciting. From this cover, it looks like this dragon produces sound, and maybe there might be a giant in the book. I don't know. We'll see. Okay.
But you should never judge a book
by its cover. Aha! Good advice, Apollo. Never judge a book by its cover. So we'll see. Chapter 1, The Wizard Watch. Bright purple energy swirled around Niru, the Thunder Dragon. Echo, his dragon master, stood next to him. The green dragon stone she wore glowed. Echo reached out with both arms. Niru's energy swirled around her. Then it poured out of her hands. Drake, Rory, Bo, and Anna watched with wide eyes, excited to see Echo use her powers as a dragon mage. The energy from Echo's hands turned into a wall of purple energy. Cool force field, Drake exclaimed. He had once seen Echo use Niru's energy to make a whip of purple light, but he had never seen her make a force field before. My connection with Niru is so strong that I can tap into his energy and use it, Echo said. That is what it means to be a dragon mage. She lowered her hands. What was that?
Dragon Magi.
Magi, not a mage. Okay. Well, she lowered her hands and the energy wall disappeared. That was awesome, Rory exclaimed. Bo raised his hand. What exactly can dragon Magis do with their dragon's energy? I would call it a mage, but Magi, we'll stick with that. They use that energy to perform some of their dragon's powers, she explained. It takes many years to learn this. I can't create a thunder blast like Niru does, but I can use his energy to make a regular power blast, or create a force field like I just did. Petra is going to be sorry she missed this, Drake said. If I go get her, will you make another force field? Echo smiled. Of course. It's strange seeing Echo smile, Drake thought, as he ran to Griffith the wizard's workshop. Echo had been Griffith's first student. She had made some bad choices in the past, but recently she has risked her life to save Drake and Rory from a dark wizard named Maldred. Maldred had trapped Echo in time with a bunch of his wizard enemies. The Time Dragon had freed Echo and all the wizards. Now Echo was back in the castle, helping Griffith teach the Dragon Masters. The wizards were another problem. Some of the wizards trapped in the wall were evil, and now they were on the loose. Petra, come see what Echo can do, Drake told the curly-haired girl, who was busy helping Griffith. In a minute. We're almost done with the first part of the Wizard Watch, Petra said. Griffith looked in Maldred's journal and found the names of the trapped wizards. She pointed to a sheet of paper on the wall. I wrote their names on this chart. Now Griffith is marking the bad ones. He marked Far North, Remis, Raging River. If we find them, we can keep an eye on them in case they start causing trouble, Griffith said. That sounds like a good plan, Drake replied. Indeed, the wizard agreed. He turned to Petra. I can finish this myself. You should go train with the others. Are you sure? Petra asked. I could... Boom! A loud sound erupted from Griffith's gazing ball. Rainbow light swirled inside the ball. What's happening? Drake cried. Chapter 2, Trouble in Remis. I asked the gazing ball to alert me of any unusual wizard activity, Griffith explained. He waved his hand over the glass ball. It must have spotted something. Echo, Rory, Anna, and Bo raced into the workshop. We heard a loud boom, Bo cried. What's going on? Anna asked. Just then the rainbow light faded and a scene appeared inside the glass. Everyone crowded around the gazing ball. They saw a large stone arena with tall archways. It was shaped like a circle and open to the sky. The arena sat in the middle of the city. That's the city of Remis, Petra remarked. A strange red and yellow mist hung over the arena. That mist looks magical, Drake said. Griffith nodded. That mist is the sign of a wizard battle, he said. When wizards fight each other, their magic builds up and gets out of control. That is why wizard battles are forbidden. Petra checked the chart up on the wall. Griffith, a wizard named Marco, came from Remis. Yes, Griffith said. That is where he lived, before Maldred trapped him. Do you think Marco is behind what is happening in the arena? Rory asked. It is likely, the wizard replied. We need to stop that battle before somebody gets hurt, Drake said. Yes, but remember, many dark wizards escaped from Maldred's time trap. I will need some of you to stay here to watch the gazing ball, Griffith said. I'll stay behind, Echo offered. I'd like to go to Remis, Petra said. It's close to my home in Hellas, and I know my way around. That will be helpful, Petra. You and Zara shall go, Griffith said, as will Drake and Worm. We will leave right away. But, Rory began. Echo put her hand on Rory's shoulder. We will keep watch, Griffith. Drake, Petra, and Griffith headed to the dragon caves. Petra put a saddle on Zara, her four-headed poison dragon. We need to transport to Remis, Drake told his earth dragon Worm. His dragonstone glowed, and he heard Worm's voice in his head. I am ready. Drake, Griffith, and Petra touched Worm. Petra put her other hand on Zara's belly. Whoosh! Green light exploded from Worm. They disappeared from the dragon caves. Drake's stomach flip-flopped, like it always did when they transported. Usually, he landed in the new place on both feet. But this time, whoomp, he landed on something scaly. Drake tumbled backwards. He opened his eyes to see a big, pink dragon. Chapter 3 Tessa and Sono. Drake jumped to his feet. He had crash-landed on a dragon. Luckily, Griffith, Petra, Zara, and Worm had all landed just fine. Drake stared at the new dragon. A wavy pattern of rainbow colors rippled across her scales. She had 4 legs and no wings. A girl wearing a dragonstone rode in a saddle on the dragon's back. She held on to a strap that was attached to more straps on the dragon's head and snout. Where did you come from? She asked. Sorry I bumped into you, Drake said. We are dragon masters like you. My dragon, Worm, transported us here. The girl's dragonstone glowed. Is Worm the dragon with the one head and tiny wings? That's right, Drake said. Are we in Remis? They had landed in front of a marble statue of a man with a helmet, sword, and shield. Behind the statue, a path led to the city that the gazing ball had shown them. Was the girl? Yes, the girl replied. I'm sorry I can't stay and talk, but I am in a hurry. My kingdom's royal wizard Felix sent me on an important mission. We came to stop the wizard battle. Is that your mission too? Drake said. It is, the girl said. I'm Tessa, and this is Sono. She's a sound dragon. Tessa, we can help you. Can you tell us how this battle started? Griffith asked. Tessa turned her head toward Griffith. Who said that? She asked. Sono told me that there were 2 dragon masters and 2 dragons. She didn't say anything about a man. That is Griffith, our wizard, Drake said. Why can't you see him? Petra asked Tessa. I'm blind, Tessa said. Sono helps me out, but sometimes she doesn't give me all of the details. Tessa's blind. Interesting. And Sono helps her find her way? Wow, Petra exclaimed. You and Sono work very closely with each other. Your bond must be strong, Drake added. That's true, Tessa said. I hope to be a dragon mage or mage someday. About your mission, Griffith interrupted. Is a wizard named Marco back in Remis? Yes, Tessa answered. Felix told me that Marco grew up here and that he became a dark wizard. He got into a fight with another evil wizard and then disappeared. We know, Drake said. Maldred. Marco wants to take over as the royal wizard of Remis, so he challenged Felix to a duel, Tessa said. And Felix agreed, Petra guessed. No, Tessa said. Felix knows that wizard battles are forbidden, but Marco started shooting magic at him, and he had to defend himself. Now the duel has been going on for days, and it's getting out of control. We must stop this duel right away, Griffith said. Yes, Tessa agreed. Felix said I should find a wizard to help Sono and me. So I'm glad I found you all. She patted Sono's head, and her dragonstone glowed. Sono, turn around. Let's go back to the arena. The sound dragon obeyed and raced into the city. Chapter 4. Wizard versus Wizard. Sono and Tessa moved quickly through Remis, followed by the others. The road is curving to the right, Tessa said. We're getting closer to the arena. Stone houses line the streets. Among the houses stood more statues like the one just outside the city. Remis is one of the oldest cities in the world, Griffith explained, as they moved through the city. He pointed to a statue of a woman holding a dove. That statue is Helen, a brave peacemaker. And there's Theo, who invented the sundial, Petra said. She pointed to a statue of a man holding a round disc. Now the arena was in sight. It towered over the city. Boom, boom! Loud sounds exploded from the arena. Bursts of red and yellow light shone through the open archways. Tessa and Sono reached the entrance first. Is everyone still behind me? Tessa called back. We're here, Drake replied. Wizard, I hope you know what to do, Tessa said. Their magic is out of control. Griffith stepped forward. If it becomes too dangerous, we will retreat, he said. We can leave and seek help from the wizards at Bellon. Bellon? Drake asked. The castle there is a kind of headquarters for wizards, Griffith explained. Also, young wizards go there to train. Drake wanted to ask more about Bellon, but he didn't have a chance. Griffith stepped into the arena, and the others followed. A crowd of townspeople had gathered to watch the battle. Two wizards stood in the center of the circle. One of them wore yellow robes. His wavy brown hair was standing on end. The other wizard was short and round, with a blonde beard and hair and red robes. Sono, tell me what's happening, Tessa said, and her dragonstone glowed. Which one is Marco? Drake asked. Felix is tall and skinny, Tessa replied, and Sono says Marco is wearing red robes. Boom! Red magic shot from Marco's hand. Felix dodged the blast. He waved his hand, and a horse made of yellow energy appeared underneath him. The horse galloped toward Marco. "End this now, Marco," Felix demanded. "Not until Remis is mine," Marco replied. He pointed at the energy horse. It turned red and transformed into a giant porcupine with prickly quills. "Ouch!" Felix cried, and he jumped off. The energy porcupine exploded, and a lightning bolt flashed in the sky. Griffith turned to the dragon masters. "Stay back," he warned. "Their magic is already escaping from the arena. The whole city is in danger. I have to stop this." Drake held his breath as Griffith entered the circle. "Marco, Felix, enough," he called out. The two wizards looked at him. "Griffith, thank goodness," Felix said. Marco frowned. "This is not your business, wizard," he said. "I'm afraid it is," Griffith said. "This duel must end." "No!" Marco yelled, and he hit Griffith with a sizzling burst of red energy. Drake gasped. A white duck stood in Griffith's place. "Worm, get Griffith out of here!" Drake yelled. Worm's body glowed, and the duck floated away from the wizards and into Drake's arms. "Get to the city entrance as fast as you can," Tessa instructed. Her dragonstone glimmered. The wavy pattern on her dragon began to wobble. Sono and Tessa shimmered and pulsed. Then they disappeared. "Sono can transport," Drake thought. He put a hand on Worm and cradled the duck with the other. Petra kept one hand on Zara and touched Worm. "Worm, transport us back to the entrance to the city," Drake commanded. In a flash, they appeared beside Tessa and Sono. "Thanks for not bumping into us this time," Tessa said. "Quack." The duck quacked. "So it sounds like your wizard got turned into a duck," Tessa said. "It looks that way," Petra said. "Unless he got switched with a duck, and the real Griffith is in a duck pond somewhere." Drake held the duck in front of his face. "Quack 3 times if you are quack 3 times if you are Griffith," he said. "Quack, quack, quack." Drake smiled. "Good," he said. "I mean, not good that you're a duck, but at least we haven't lost you. We'll find a way to turn you back." "How can we help him?" Petra said. "We should go to Bellon," Tessa said. "That's what your wizard said. Felix told him to go there, too." "Quack," Griffith agreed. "The castle of the wizards is there," Petra added. "I read a book about it once." "Let's transport right away," Drake said. He turned to Tessa. "It looks like Sono can transport too, but in a different way than Worm." Sono is a sound dragon, and one of her powers is that she can turn into sound waves, Tessa told him. Sound waves move really, really fast. "Do you and Petra want to try it?" No thank you," Petra said. "I don't like things that move really fast." "I'll try it," Drake said. "Worm, can you get Petra and Zara to Bellon?" "Yes," Worm replied. "Quack, quack," Petra laughed. "I think Griffith wants to go with me," she said, as she took him from Drake. Drake climbed up onto Sono's back. "Put your arms around me and hold on," Tessa instructed. "Sono's going to turn us into sound waves, too. It will feel a bit weird." Drake thought about changing his mind, but he decided not to. "Ready?" he said. He looked down at Sono's wavy scales. They started to wiggle. Drake heard a humming sound in his ears, and his body felt tingly. Then, whoosh! They sped toward Bellon at the speed of sound. Chapter 6. Bellon. Drake's head felt very fuzzy. They were moving impossibly fast. He felt frightened and excited at the same time. This is really different from when Worm transports, he thought. The tingly feelings stopped. Drake blinked. They had landed on a flat green plain overlooking the blue sea. A path led to a tall castle that towered on the end of the cliff. "What did you think, Drake?" Tessa asked. Drake grinned. "That was a wild ride." "Right?" Tessa patted the braid of her hair wrapped around her head. "That's why I wear my hair like this. Otherwise it flies all over." Green light flashed and Worm appeared with Zara and Petra, who held Griffith under one arm. "Quack!" "You beat us," Petra said, surprised. "Sono is really fast," Drake told her. Then he looked at the path leading to the castle. "That must be the castle of the wizards. Let's walk." They stepped onto the path. "So Tessa, what other powers does Sono have?" Petra asked. Tessa jumped off Sono's back without letting go of the leather strap. "Sono has lots of great sound powers," she said, walking beside her dragon. "She can make powerful sound waves that can break up rocks. She can transform into sound waves and pass through solid things like walls." "She is a really cool dragon," Drake said. "It is hard being a dragon master if you can't see." "Or is it hard being a dragon master if you can't see?" Petra blurted out. Her cheeks turned pink. I'm sorry, is that a rude question? I don't mind you asking, Tessa replied. The answer is that it's not hard. I have the same connection with Sono that you have with your dragons. Just like you, I train my dragon. But unlike you, Sono tells me what's going on when I can't figure things out by what I hear or feel. She guides me and describes things to me. That's awesome, Drake said. Before I met Sono, Tessa explained, I used this staff to help me get around. She pulled out the long staff strapped to her back. How does that work? Drake asked. Tessa let go of Sono's strap. She gripped the staff just below the dragon head carved on the top. Then she held the staff in front of her and walked forward. She moved it from left to right, tapping the ground. I move the staff a little wider than my body to make sure it's clear for me to take a step. I can feel if there's a rock in front of me, or a door, or stuff like that. That's so smart, Drake said. Thanks, Tessa replied. I use my hearing and other senses to get information about my surroundings too. But having Sono as my guide is the best. Sono's one of the coolest dragons I've ever seen, Petra said. Tell me about Zara, Tessa said. What kind of powers does she have? She's a dragon with poison powers called a Hydra, Petra explained. But she also has a beautiful song. She can heal anyone who is hurt by her poison. That is an amazing power, Tessa said. Can I hear her song? Petra smiled. Sure, she said, and her dragon stone glowed. Zara, please sing for us. The Hydra's four heads began to sing together in harmony. A sweet, pretty tune filled the air. Ah, ah. While Zara sang, Tessa's dragonstone glowed. A soft pink light shone from Sono. The light got brighter, and Zara's song became louder. That's another power, Tessa said. Sono can change sound waves to make sounds louder or softer. Zara and Sono should experiment more than we have time. Or Zara and Sono should experiment more when we have time, Petra suggested. They had reached the castle. A wizard guard wearing a tall black hat stood in front of the door. Stop! No dragons may enter here, he yelled. Chapter 7. The Castle of the Wizards. The guard frowned and crossed his arms. You have to let us in, Tessa demanded. There's a wizard duel happening in Remis, and our wizard has been turned into a duck, Drake said. Petra held out Griffith. Quack. The guard raised an eyebrow. Is that so? The duck sounds like an ordinary duck to me. He bent down and looked the duck in the eyes. Quack, 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 quack. Griffith scolded. The guard straightened up. Yes, Griffith, you can see the head wizard right away. Can you understand birds? Drake asked. Mostly just ducks and chickens, the guard replied. You kids can go in, but your dragons must stay here. Those are the castle rules. Sono needs to stay with me, Tessa explained. She guides me. Quack, quack, Griffith added. Yes, guide animals are allowed, the guard said, but Sono can't use her dragon powers inside this castle. Got it, Tessa said, and she and Sono moved past the guard. You'll find the head wizard at the end of the hallway, the guard called after her. Drake and Petra followed Tessa, leaving Zara and Worm outside the gates. The place reminds me of Bracken Castle, Drake thought, looking at the floors and walls made of gray stone. As Drake and Petra passed by half-open doors, they saw scenes very different from those in Bracken. In one room, boys and girls waved wands with sparkling tips. Right! Griffith said that young wizards train here, Drake remembered. In another classroom, a boy pointed his finger at an apple, and it turned into a potato. Another room was filled with glittery purple fog. Finally, they reached the door at the end of the hallway. Drake moved to knock on it, but the door swung open on its own. They heard a voice from within. "Griffith, what trouble have you gotten into?" Chapter 8. The Head Wizard. Drake and Petra stepped into the room, where a woman was sitting behind a desk. The woman wasn't wearing a wizard's hat. Her white hair was pulled back from her wrinkled face, and instead of a wizard's robe, she wore an orange dress with fabric draped over her shoulder. But when her dark brown eyes gazed at him, Drake shivered. He could almost feel the magic coming out of them. "Hello, Drake and Petra," the head wizard said, and Drake was not surprised that she knew their names. "Tessa, please come in, but I'm afraid your dragon won't fit in the room." "That's fine," Tessa said. She entered using her staff to tap the floor in front of her. "I am the head wizard. You may call me Gianna." She informed them. Gianna nodded to Petra. "Bring me Griffith." Petra stepped forward and put the duck on the desk. Griffith waddled over to the wizard. "Quack, quack, quack, quack." "Oh dear," Gianna said, smiling. "I'm sorry to smile, my friend, but this is a rather funny." She clapped, and two wizards rushed into the room. "Perform the spell of undoing on this duck," she told them. "He should end up as a human wizard when you're done." One of the wizards scooped up Griffith. Then they both left without a word. Drake frowned. "Will the spell work?" "It will, but it may take an hour or so," Gianna replied. "We don't have that much time," Tessa blurted out. "There is a wizard duel in Remis, and it is getting out of control." "Is Felix involved?" Gianna asked. "He is not a rule breaker." "Marco challenged him to a duel." Tessa answered, "Felix is just trying to save our city." The wizard's eyes widened. "But Marco has been missing for years. When did he come back?" "Maldred trapped him in a time, but he escaped." "It's a long story," Drake said. "Tessa is right. We need to act fast to save Remis." Gianna stood up and walked to the corner of the room, where a gazing ball sat on the ground, or sat on a round table. She waved her hand over it. "Remis," she said. An image of the arena appeared inside the glass. The red and yellow mist over the arena was now a big swirling cloud. People were running away from it. The head wizard turned to the dragon masters. "You're right. This is serious," she said. "Only a power crystal can stop this magic. So, let's get a power crystal," Tessa cried. Gianna shook her head. "I'm afraid that's impossible," she said. "And without a power crystal, Remis will fall." Chapter 9. The Unbreakable Rock. "Why is it impossible to get a power crystal?" Drake asked the head wizard. "I think I know," Petra piped up. "Any wizard who touches a powder crystal will lose all of their magic forever. The crystal absorbs it." "Correct, Petra," Gianna said. "The crystal contains the magic of all the wizards it has absorbed." "But they're not wizards, so we can safely use it, right?" Drake asked. "Yes, but the crystal is not easy to reach," the wizard replied. She waved her hand, and an image of the towering rock appeared in the gazing ball. "The power crystal is embedded inside the unbreakable rock," she explained, "and the spell to free the power crystal from the rock takes days to prepare. It will be too late to save Remis." "Is the rock truly unbreakable?" Drake asked. "Worm's mind powers can break rocks, and so can Sono's sound powers," Tessa added. The wizard shook her head. "Only the spell can break it." "What if we don't break the rock?" Tessa asked. "Sono can turn into sound waves. We could pass right through the rock, and I could grab the crystal and bring it back out." Of course! I should have thought of that, Gianna said. Follow me. Tessa climbed on Sono's back, and they all followed Gianna out of the castle, where Worm and Zara were waiting. Then everyone rushed down to the cliff's edge. An enormous rock, as tall as a tree, overlooked the waves. Petra looked at the head wizard. Are you sure going inside the unbreakable rock won't hurt Tessa and Sono? They'll be fine, the wizard replied. I think. Petra frowned. Tessa, maybe you. I will risk it, Tessa said. It's the only way to save my city. Her dragon stone glowed. Sono, we need to travel inside the big rock and grab the crystal inside. Drake's heart pounded as Sono's wavy scales began to move. The dragon and the girl began to shimmer. Then they walked toward the rock and seemed to melt right into it. Drake held his breath, waiting for Tessa and Sono to reappear, but the seconds ticked away with no sign of the Dragon Master or her dragon. Chapter 10. The Plan. Drake and Petra exchanged worried looks. Tessa, where are you? Drake wondered. Suddenly the rock began to glow, with pink light. Tessa and Sono came out of the rock wavy and shimmery. When they became solid again, Drake saw a glittering crystal the size of an apple in Tessa's hand. We did it, Tessa announced. She held out the power crystal. Gianna stepped away from Tessa. I must not touch the crystal. Please hold on to it. It is very powerful, and you cannot let it fall into the wrong hands. Tessa tucked the crystal into a bag hanging from her belt. Now, Gianna said, let us return to the castle and see if Griffith is ready. When they arrived at the front gates, Griffith walked out of the castle. Drake and Petra ran up to him. Griffith! It is good to see you, Drake cried. The wizard hugged his dragon masters. Gianna pointed to Tessa. Griffith, this brave dragon master has freed the power crystal from the unbreakable rock. Well done, Tessa, Griffith cried. He stroked his beard, and a few feathers flew out. But Gianna and I cannot touch it. But we can, Drake said. We'll use the crystal to soak up all of the magic from the wizard battle. And you wizards could get Marco and Felix to stop fighting, Tessa added. That's a good plan, Gianna agreed. Drake, can you please ask your dragon to transport everyone? Drake nodded. Sono and I will meet you at the arena, Tessa said. Then she and Sono disappeared. I'll meet you there too, the head wizard said, and with the snap of her fingers, poof, she disappeared. Worm transported everyone else to Remis. They landed outside the arena. Gianna, Tessa, and Sono had beaten them there. Frightened, people ran screaming out of the arena. Overhead, the swirling red and yellow cloud looked much bigger. How do we use the power crystal? Drake asked Griffith and Gianna. Uh-oh, Tessa said. Do you hear that? Something big is coming. She pointed behind them. They turned to see a giant statue as tall as the arena. It was alive, and it was stomping toward them. Chapter 11. A Giant Problem. That's the statue from the city entrance, Drake cried. Only it's enormous and alive. The magic from the battle has done this, Griffith said. Gianna and I need to stop the battle before the magic causes more problems. Dragon Masters, use your dragons to stop the statue. Then hurry into the arena with the crystal. Griffith and Gianna ran into the arena. Drake and Petra stared up at the giant, stomping toward them. It carried a stone sword and shield. The ground rumbled as it walked. The stone street cracked under its huge, heavy feet. How are we supposed to stop that? Drake wondered. Drake didn't Didn't you say that Worm could break up rocks like Sono can? Tessa asked. That's right, Drake said, but I'm not sure if his mind powers are strong enough to break a magical stone, man. His dragon stone glowed. I can try, Worm said. Maybe Sono can add her powers to Worm's, Tessa said. First, we need to get the statue away from the townspeople before we attack it. Zara and I can handle that, Petra said. Her face was pale, but her voice was brave. Then let's stop this statue, Tessa cried. Petra jumped onto Zara's back. Zara, fly! The Hydra launched into the air. She flew up, up, up to the giant's face. Over here, giant! Petra yelled. Bet you can't catch us! The statue followed Petra and Zara, turning away from the city and stomping toward the fields. Drake and Tessa chased after it with their dragons. As soon as we reach the fields, I'll tell Worm to attack, Drake called out. And when he does, Sono will join in, Tessa called back. The statue followed Zara and Petra all the way to the fields. When they got there, Zara flew around the giant's head. The statue began to move in a circle, confused. Petra and Zara flew away. Worm, now! Drake yelled. A green light swept from the top of Worm's body to the end of his tail. It grew brighter and brighter. Worm closed his eyes. Worm's green light snaked up the statue's legs, making cracks in the stone. Sono, break the giant into bits! Tessa shouted. Sono's body began to shimmer. Wavy pink lines poured from the sound dragon's body and wrapped around the giant. The statue started to shake. Chunks of the rock broke off and tumbled to the ground. Tendrils of Worm's green light spread all the way around and up the statue's head. Sono's pink light made the statue shake harder and harder. We'd better move back, Tessa called out to Drake. The dragons stopped their attack. Sono and Tessa raced away, and Drake and Worm hurried after them. Then, boom! The stone statue exploded into chunks of rock and dust. Chapter 12. Into the Storm. When the dust cleared, Drake ran over to his friends. They weren't hurt. Petra's hands were shaking. That was scary, she said. You did a great job drawing the statue out of the city, Tessa replied. Drake looked back at the arena. The cloud of magic still swirled overhead, sparkling and shooting out lightning bolts. Griffith and Gianna need us, he said. Let's go. They raced into the arena. Griffith and Gianna were on the edge of the circle, floating in protective magical bubbles. They were trying to talk to the battling wizards. Griffith zoomed over to the three dragon masters. Marco and Felix will not listen to us, he said, and we cannot use our magic to fight them. It will only make the magic cloud bigger. You must use the power crystal. How does it work? Drake asked. Griffith pointed to the sky. You must take the crystal up there, beneath the magic cloud. The crystal will absorb the magic once you are close enough to it. Just be careful not to touch the cloud. You may end up as a duck. Or worse, Drake finished. Petra stepped forward. Zara can fly up to the cloud, and I'll make sure she doesn't touch it, she said. But one of you will have to hold up the power crystal to absorb the magical energy. I'll hold the crystal, Drake said. Tessa held out the power crystal. You too can do this. Drake took it from her. Thanks, and he climbed onto Zara behind Petra. Are you ready? Drake asked Petra. As ready as I'll ever be, she replied. Zara, fly! Zara flew up over the dueling wizards. The very center of the magic cloud whirled like a tornado. Flash! A lightning bolt streaked down from the cloud, and Petra steered Zara away from it. Then the dragon zoomed back toward the cloud's spinning center. Drake held the power crystal above his head. "Nothing's happening," he yelled. "We need to get closer." Petra nodded, and Zara flew up fast. One of Zara's heads almost touched the cloud. "Slow down, Zara!" Petra cried. Above them, a thin stream of magic cloud twisted out toward the power crystal. It hit the crystal, which began to glow, and the cloud swirled faster and faster, finally disappearing into the crystal. Drake felt the crystal pulse in his hand. He added his other hand and held on tightly. Light beamed from the crystal as the cloud became smaller and smaller and smaller, until it disappeared. The crystal felt cool in Drake's hands. "The magic cloud is gone!" Drake cheered. "Hip hip hooray!" Chapter 13. A Good Team. Petra steered Zara back down onto the arena floor. Griffith and Gianna were still floating in their protective bubbles. Bam! Marco shot a red magic blast at Felix. The wizard dodged it. The bodies of both wizards sizzled with magical energy. "If Felix and Marco don't stop fighting soon, they'll create another magic cloud," Drake said. "They need to calm down," Tessa said. Petra looked at Tessa. "Tessa, Zara's music might be able to help. Sono can make sound clouds, right? Can she control where they go, too?" "Yes," Tessa replied. "I think I know what you want to do. Let's try it." At Petra's command, Zara began to sing, a calm and soft song, like a lullaby. Sono controlled the sound waves of the song. She made the song louder and aimed the sound waves right at the two wizards. The waves reached the wizards. Marco's hands were raised for another strike, but he slowly lowered them. His eyes drooped. Felix saw Marco's weakness and charged forward, but then he stopped, and his eyes drooped too. The two wizards swayed back and forth. Then they sank to the ground, fast asleep. Pop, pop! Griffith and Gianna popped the protective bubbles that they had made, and they landed beside the sleeping wizards. Gianna pointed at Marco, and silver light streamed from her fingertips. It formed a bubble around him. "This will keep him trapped until I get him back to Bellon," Gianna said. "He will face judgment at the castle of the wizards." "What about Felix?" Tessa asked. "He didn't want to battle Marco. He just did it to protect the city." "He isn't in trouble," Gianna assured her. "That's good," Tessa said. "Now, we need to get the power crystal safely back inside the unbreakable rock," Gianna said. "Tessa, would you mind bringing it back to Bellon?" "No problem," Tessa said, and Drake handed the crystal to her. "I'll meet you at the castle when you are done. Here," Gianna said. She snapped her fingers, and silver sparks showered over them, and Marco, poof! They disappeared. Suddenly, Felix opened his eyes. "Marco, you'll never—" He sat up. "Marco?" "He's been captured," Griffith told him. "And if you're okay, my friend, I will return to Bracken with Drake and Petra." Petra spoke up. "Actually," she said, "I'd like to stay here in Remis." Chapter 14. A Message. "Petra, why don't you want to come back to Bracken?" Drake asked. "Someday I will," Petra said, "but I miss my home, and Remis is closer to it. Also, I'd like to find out what Zara and Sono can do when they work together." Ah, two song dragons working together. That's a good idea, huh, Paulo? The two dragons were smiling at each other. "I think that is a splendid idea, Petra," Griffith said. Drake hugged his friend. "I'll miss you." "We all will." Petra smiled. "I'll miss you too," she said. She turned to Griffith. "You are the best teacher. Thank you." "Felix is a good teacher too," Griffith replied. Felix smiled. "Thank you, Griffith," he said. "I'll enjoy having an extra pupil." Petra and I will meet up with you after we take this power crystal back to Bellon. Tessa told her wizard. She turned to Drake. I am glad you all bumped into me and Sono earlier. Haha, me too, Drake said, smiling. Okay, Tessa said. We need to go. Petra frowned. I'm still a little scared to transport with Sono, she said, but I think I'm ready to try it. Come next to us and hold my hand, Tessa said. We'll be there in a flash. Tessa, Petra, and their dragons transported to Bellon in a shimmering wave. Then Worm quickly transported Drake and Griffith to the training room in Bracken. Rory, Bo, and Anna rushed to greet them, followed by Echo. You're back! But where are Petra and Zara? Rory asked. Petra wanted to stay and learn from Tessa, Drake said. She's a really cool dragon master. What? Rory cried. Anna frowned. I will miss her. So will I, but I am glad she is happy, Bo said, announcing Mina of the far north and her dragon Frost. Simone, the guard's voice rang through the training room. Mina marched in. Her ice dragon Frost followed her. Mina, you're back! Drake cried. Are you here for a visit? No, I have a message for Griffith from my wizard, Hulda. Mina replied. She has found Astrid. Oh no, Griffith said. The dragon masters looked at him. Who is Astrid? Drake asked. She is Hulda's sister, and she is the most dangerous wizard I have ever known, he replied. Even more dangerous than dun-dun-dun, Maldred. And that was the end of Book 16, Dragon Masters, but it sounds like we have another adventure coming up, Apollo. Mm-hmm. Are you ready?
Ayo!
Well, that's what I was asking if you're ready for.